Macmillan Audio presents Chanel's Riviera by Anne de Courcy. Read for you by Sophie Roberts. Introduction. This book is neither a biography of Chanel nor a history of the Riviera. Both have been written many times before, but the story of the years during which Chanel spent her summers in that part of France. The French Riviera is probably the most famous piece of coastline in the world, while Coco Chanel has a good claim to be the most famous dress designer ever. In 1930, they, so to speak, joined forces, with Chanel building a glamorous villa there, known as La Pausa. All through the decade that followed, she came down to spend the summer in it, often with a lover, almost always with friends. It was, in many senses, her only real home. She had had apartments in Paris, but from 1934 onwards lived in the Paris Ritz, whereas La Pausa, built to her specifications, furnished and run exactly as she wanted, was hers and hers alone. The 1930s were probably the heyday of the Riviera in its modern sense, that is, as a place to visit for its long, glorious summer, rather than, as Queen Victoria did, for winter warmth. Not yet smothered in concrete, newly opened up by the Murphys, Fitzgeralds, Hemingways and their friends, it was at first known as a place to live simply and cheaply, with the rich and fashionable swarming to Antibes, Nice and Cannes, driving out at night along the coast to eat at one of the little fishermen's restaurants, or into the hinterland for something a bit grander. Few of those who had settled there, as many English had, thought much about what was going on in the rest of Europe. It was another life, warm, golden, easy, with reassuring visits by British naval ships, far removed from politics or conflict. Then came the war years. At first, no one took much notice, and life went on as before, with the French and the resident British placing their trust in the Maginot Line, believed impregnable. With the Franco-German armistice in June 1940, first came Vichy France and a tide of Jewish refugees escaping from the Nazis, and then invasion by the Italians, followed by the Germans. Through it all, Chanel spent summers at La Pausa. In the later years with her German lover, until, with the liberation of the coast in 1944, her business still closed and her lover gone, she left for the peaceful neutrality of Switzerland. Although she visited La Pausa several times afterwards, it was no longer her home, and its sale in 1953 snapped her final link with the coast. Prologue. In the summer of 1938, the burning question on the Riviera was not what Germany was going to do next, but whether or not to curtsy to the Duchess of Windsor. It was less than 2 years since the Duke had abdicated the throne of England to marry, as he famously put it, the woman I love. But largely because she, Wallis Simpson, had already been divorced twice, and no one knew whether she would stop at that. She had been denied the HRH title that would have brought with it this automatic obeisance. Would courtesy, the Duke was insistent that respect be shown to his wife, win over correctness and the feeling of some that neither of them deserved it? It was fitting that they had come to the Riviera, the glamorous, golden, sun-filled coastline, famous for uninhibited enjoyment, and where nobody inquired too deeply into your past. Here, every year, the rich...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?